Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I am Calen Carpenter. You can find me CB Carpenter on Facebook or Hashknife Kid Twitter. With me is my illustrious. Is that how you want to be introduced, Dad?
You
Father Braden, and you can find him at the Ranch Facebook site on Facebook at Hashknife Ranch and Enterprises. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe on Facebook. Like, comment, share. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Like, comment, share on Facebook. Spread the word on both, and we'll get started. Because Dad just was being mean to me and made fun of a very simple question that he knows what my. Yes, you did. He knew what my intent was, and he said, "What
well,
was it?"
ask the question. Ask
So
what are we going to talk about?
we're talking about what do we want to talk about this week? Because normally we prep a little bit, and this week it didn't really happen. We got new computers, going through things, and we literally sat down and said, "All right, what do you want to talk about today?" And he goes, "Well, we can talk about what happened this week." I was like, "Okay, what happened this week?" And he goes, "We went to a cow sale." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So what I asked was, "Is it a lot like going to a bull sale?" And he's like, "Yeah, except it's cows." I'm like, "Thanks. That's not what I meant, and you know that."
Okay, so if your brother was sitting here, he would then chime in with what? Oh, Calen, you've lost touch. All that big
Big
city
city
living you've
living.
been
I hate him. Oh,
there. Oh, he just because you're traveling all over the world, right? I mean, you've been in New York State. I don't think you made it to the city, did you?
no, no, that's one thing I wish I would have. I really wanted to go to Saratoga Battlefield. One day I will go to Saratoga Battlefield because that was a big part in American history. I'm being a history
Right.
buff and all, but oh man, yeah, no, I got to see a lot of New York, but didn't see. I even got to go to West Point. I was there for a couple months, but I didn't go into the city. And yeah,
Yeah, at West Point, you were putting in like 18, 20-hour days.
yeah, legitimately, yeah, I was, but uh,
So you didn't have a lot of room
Braden,
to move even around.
but no, Braden always says, "Oh, that big city living, going back to New York." I'm like, that's not true at all. You know that's not true, and the fact that you say that really irks me.
That's
He
funny.
does that on purpose.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, your brother. I mean, you have to have a red button about this big around, so that all he has to do is go ding.
Yeah, well,
And
his
he
is
just
sometimes his is only this big around, but it's
oh,
once you find it, you just keep pushing it because you never know how long it's gonna last.
you don't have to push it. You just have to look at it.
Oh,
And
that's true. I'll take my glasses
yeah,
off.
he is thin skinned. Notice that how people though that are a lot of times those that really want to just dig people and mess with them are the ones with the thinnest skin. I mean, I think their whole defense is nothing but it's just blitzkrieg offense on.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But okay, going back to the original thing, what was my intention behind the question? My intention was, okay, what do we do at bull
Basically, how did
sales?
it go?
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, what was the process? Because when we go to a bull sale, normally, and I never remember what the acronym stands for, but EPDs, um,
Yeah,
uh,
expected progeny differences.
there you go. So we're looking at bulls and people may or may not be interested. I get really geeked out about this because I love genetics. I think it's one of the coolest things ever. And unfortunately, I've been trying to look a little bit for agriculture genetics, like books on it. There's not a whole lot on it, which is surprising to me. Well, specifically for animal husbandry, there's a lot on plants. And
Right.
Braden can definitely geek out on that with his rangeland expertise. But
Oh
uh,
my God, he gets. I mean, it
oh, let's
is.
look at this blade of grass. I'm gonna break down this blade of grass for 20 minutes, and it's beautiful. No, it's a blade of grass. Like I
Well,
have an
and he.
appreciation for it, but no,
Well,
it's a
but
blade.
he's my size. I mean, we weigh the same. We had to do some calculations for weight one day, and I go, "Hey, what do you
120.
weigh?" And he looks at me. Why? I said, "No,
That's a
I'm
look.
not," because
That's
he
definitely his
needs to
look.
start working.
Why?
Yeah, yeah, because he's got to start working out here really hard because he's looking to get on a hotshot crew this year. He's been 5 years in the wildlands firefighting industry, or that profession, and this year he's like, I'm gonna, now that he's out of school, he can start earlier and then work, and no real obligations. So other than that, and so but those guys have to be in great shape.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's been kind of working out half-heartedly, kind of waiting for you to get home a little bit so you can,
I need to
have
go for some runs. I haven't been running in a couple months, so him and I
well,
can
it'd be
go
good.
do some
I'm
sprints or
thinking
something.
he's thinking more the beer end of it, have some
Oh, yeah.
drink,
I can do
drink
that
a
kind of
loaf of
working out.
bread,
Nice curls, right here. Yep.
Right. So he's a little sensitive about his weight, and so he says, "Why?" And I went, "Well, just I need to figure out what the weight and balance is here." And he goes, 245, and I go, "Oh,
Is he really? Holy crap!
okay." And I said, "Fully
Oh,
clothed, what are you?" He said, 245. I'm like,
sick.
"Oh, okay." Guess what I am? Fully clothed.
245.
245. Yeah, fully clothed.
Then there's
Boots on
little old me. I've been eating less.
137 pounds.
Now I'm 185, but I mean,
We
oh
kick
man,
sand in your face all the time, so
yeah, man, couple beasts over here.
Yeah, I need to lose a little bit too. And your mother thinks I'm losing weight, but she's just being kind because she knows I'm going to die soon and wants to go out on a good note.
Going to the weight thing. It's interesting you say that because I had this is kind of a small theory that's completely unproven, but I think that's a wrestler thing. He gets sensitive because every single wrestler I know
Oh,
that's post wrestling, we're all, even if like I'm not super chubby or anything, but I got some fluff I could get rid of, and we're all super sensitive about that weight because
right.
for years we were looking at that scale twice, 3 times a day at minimum, and we're like, oh, I'm over a pound. It's like it's almost like a runway model or a jockey in
Right.
racing. And you're like it go back to those scenes in Seabiscuit with Toby Maguire, and he's like 136 pounds, and he's like,
Right.
okay, and he walks over the toilet and fingers down the mouth, and like it's kind of a slight disease thing, but I'm like, you gotta like, I don't know, you gotta get past that and figure it out
Well,
at some point.
and you're right. And how long does it take to develop a habit? Right. It doesn't take that long if you're consistent about it. Well, you
19
go
days, statistically speaking, 19 to
right.
21 days every single
How
day.
well?
You
How
got the
long?
habit.
Well, and you're doing that multiple times a day. How many days is a wrestling season? A single wrestling season?
It's close to 100 in high
Right.
school. Now
Right.
college, totally
Oh,
different.
totally
I
different.
mean,
Even longer.
it's
That's year
like
round.
270, and then
Yeah.
the 3 or 4 months that they're not wrestling, they're lifting hard, but they're not gaining a lot of weight still.
Right. That's like I say about like Little League baseball season. That thing lasts like 18 months. I mean,
Yeah.
they just go forever and ever, it
Yeah.
seems like. But no, back to your brother, he's 245 pounds. He's got this beard that's starting to grow out. I think he's trying to push some boundaries with his girlfriend because she likes his beard nice and cropped, and he's letting it grow out. I'm like, oh, this is interesting to watch. I'm not saying a word. I'm just watching it.
The development of a relationship. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to set boundaries here.
Funny to watch from the outside.
Okay. Big red button. He's going to push it.
Yeah.
So anyway, here's this guy that's big, he's burly, and he's tougher than, dog snot. I mean, you both are. I mean, don't deny that.
Part of it, I think a lot of it comes to, I was a bully when I was little, and I beat the crap out of him growing up. So he's hard-headed. He's a lot like my grandfather. So the two of them together,
one?
Well,
both of them.
Personality-wise, when it comes to him trying to get what he wants done, it's a lot of mom's father. But then the him just being hard-headed and I'm gonna do it because I can and I will, definitely comes from Grandpa Tex. So
well, yeah, because your mother laughs, well, your grandmother too, about the time. We're getting off subject, but this is all right.
Yeah, we'll come back to EPDs. Stand by, people.
Yeah. Stand down. Stand down, everybody. So we were over at it was a state convention or state meeting for our horse association. And I had been delivered a horse. I was like February. I started training this, I think it was a 7-year-old stallion. And so he was done by, mid-May. He's a little bit tougher, and I had weather issues, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, got this horse done, and they were going to pick him up at this this convention, basically. They attended it with this horse, and we left, or we get over there, And I showed him the horse, showed him what he'd do. They'd rode him. Everything's all happy and giddy, and they're saying, well, let's get you paid. So we get some paperwork, because we do a contract and all this stuff. And I said, you bet, this sounds great. Well, we had taken also, there was a small camper there. I don't know who drug it. I don't remember. Anyway, we're in the camper, and Dad says, let me take Braden. I'll just take him for a walk. He's like 3 years old. And Braden didn't want to do what Braden wanted to do. It's going to be a fight. And my dad is so hard-headed. He's like, you will comply. So here goes my dad.
The battle of the wills. I mean, if people know Grandpa Tex and they know Braden, they know that it is the same person 2 generations apart. That's it. That's it. You look at the pictures in high school, exact same person, attitude, same person. Braden's attitude in the morning is probably the only thing that Grandpa was always really good in the morning. He probably got that more from Grandpa Wayne somehow.
Right.
But
my
no,
grandpa.
It's the same freaking person, just 50 years later.
Yep. Well, so Dad's gonna get him away because he's just a pain in the butt. A little 3-year-old. Every 3-year-old kid wants to be involved. I was like, no, we're doing business here. Yeah. And so he takes him, and they're walking down this gravel 2-track away from these barns, and Braden has got his boots, literally scooting in the dirt, heels down, throwing a fit, yelling, crying, and Dad's got him by the arm, and he's just dragging him along. It was a tug of war. Oh my God. It was an epic battle between the two of them. It was, they're only, 50 years apart in age. It was, and there for a minute, I wasn't sure who was going to win. I knew the old man. I knew Dad was going to win ultimately, but what kind of beating was he going to take in the meantime?
Yeah, because that, in a sense, Braden would have won just in the fact that he made Grandpa have to do all that work. But
right.
But anyway,
so here he is with this attitude, and he's burly, and he's all of these things, but he has got like this geeky spot. You talk about geeking out on EPDs. He geeks out on grassland. His whole thing is range management. And the ecology of it, and which is great because it's going to come in very, very useful as a tool for us to manage our pastures, right, and do an even better job. And I'm concerned always about overgrazing. And he was sitting here the other night. You're not overgrazed. If you
but that comes from the part where, and we've said this a couple of times, I think, or just in passing, but it's a good point because I was watching if it's been released yet, I don't think it has. In the shoot episode that we filmed recently, where we're like, which is harder to manage, horses or cows, and then we started talking about the ground a little bit and how it's taken care of and how the two go into it. But like that's an important part because I don't know how interested you are in grass in the ground, other than it's important because it takes care of us. But for me, I have no interest other than that same principle, which is we have to take care of the land because the land takes care of the animals, which takes care of us. But other than that, I have no interest in looking at a cross section like Braden does and being like, okay, what's the weeds, what's breaking, all that stuff. But
well, I got interested in it, like you probably a little more than you do, I guess, when you explain it that way, because I want to know whether it's rhizomatous, what kind of growth it has, does it choke other things out, but as far as looking at it as its seed and the condyletons, and I'm like, get out of here, I don't care. I mean,
you threw some big words out there that I have no idea what I'm like. All right, I'm out.
Okay,
I'm done.
but see, but that's it. It's like, okay, that's all right, but ultimately, I don't want to do harm to the ground. Mm-hmm. We need to have a sustainable ranch. Yep. You want to maximize what you've got without hurting it. That's just that balance that you have, So, and I want to know, what's palatable to them, what they will flourish on, the animals, but he's all about he gets, how he's just stoic most of the time.
Oh yeah.
And we've been accused of being stoic Vikings anyway. Was it stoic emotionless Vikings?
Stoic emotionless Vikings, yes.
Yeah. And so, and he starts talking, and he very much is, until you start talking about plants and you get a beer in him or a couple,
Yeah.
and he just gets geeky and he's smiling and he's animated. Like, what? Over a plant? Okay.
Weirdo.
You know, but we've got such a diverse educational backgrounds between the four of us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So
you three are probably more similar than I, because I'm the only one that doesn't have a science degree.
yeah, you're kind of the lemon of the bunch.
Yeah,
I mean,
I really am, because I do all the, I'm the artsy fartsy, I guess you could say, one out of the, kind of, to an
I
to an
wouldn't say
extent.
that. Yeah,
But
I mean, you're just not a hard science person.
no, I'm not.
We're more hard
I have an
science.
appreciation for it for sure. But nah, I'm
Well,
good.
it's like, you know, because Braden's is, you know, he was gonna thought about being a orthopedic surgeon, you know, because he's had that neck injury and really, I mean, they had Dr. Michael Copeland, if you're out there, man, you saved this kid's life.
Yeah, for sure.
Literally, you know. And so he really, you know, was drawn to that, and he was going to want to be maybe an eye doctor, which was kind of cool. And then he started in, and we're kind of like, oh, I don't know, you know, I don't think he's got the discipline for.
I lived with him for 3 years.
Yeah, no, you know, I mean, we're thinking, okay, this isn't going to work. But he was talking about then teaching, and, you know, he'd make a good teacher.
Oh yeah, he a lot like one of our wrestling coaches, and a big history teacher, big influence on me. But Todd Rose, like he's a lot like Todd, and when he gets what he is interested in, Braden is very charming and very informative, and he can really break things down and get to that personal connection with you, to, okay, what are you not understanding? Okay, cool. So this is kind of, and he's really good at that.
Yeah, no, that's right. And of course, he and Todd are a lot alike too. So, you know, I mean, just their hard-headedness and all that stuff. But anyway, so he just kind of morphed into Fight and Fire. He did a volunteer job. He was working for us that first summer after he graduated, I believe it was, or the first summer, the summer of his senior year, I think, or senior year. Anyway, I can't remember. Year after your grandpa died, or my dad died, and he was staying at the ranch, kind of helping out, working for us, taking care of grandma, making sure everything was all right there. And he volunteered on the local fire department there. Grandma says, just go in there, and if you want to, you know, be on the fire department, you know, I mean, grandma not understanding what it really takes to do that, but, you know, the intentions are good, and it was a good move. So he volunteered in there and kind of liked it, you know, even only going on a couple of fires, but he got the training, all of that, which was kind of cool. And then the next year, I think then he's like, you know what, I want to see if I can get on some, you know, duty station somewhere, you know, as a seasonal, and did. And then God, after that, is like, he really geeks out on fire too. So,
well, the two go hand in hand, and I think that's probably what helped get him to figure out what he wanted to do as well. Because and trust me, like we're giving him a hard time right now with 245 pounds, but there's a lot of muscle there, because if you've seen a wildlands firefighter, those guys are a lot like the infantry. They're packing some big, heavy rucksacks or backpacks, and then, like Braden's told us, you know, they're carrying their water, you know, something that we're not used to. We carry water like camelbacks and maybe some canteens, but like they're carrying 25 to 50 pounds of water per person on top of all their gear and all the stuff that they got. Like, oh man, I can't imagine carrying 50 pounds of water. Like that's ridiculous.
They call it a QB, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, here's an example. And this was, I don't know, 3 years ago. I mean, he's got legs like freaking tree trunks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's big and thick. He's thick chested, kind of like I am, maybe even bigger now. I don't know. I mean, could be, but he's just big, solid. And they were down, I think, fighting fire on a big one down in like Utah. And they're on, you know, their squad is 5 people, or their crew, 5 people on these hand crews. And they had a gal with them that had a chainsaw. She was a sawyer, and she's struggling, right? I mean, she's not very big, which there's other issues there. If you can do the job, do the job. But if you're struggling to do the job, and I don't care what it is, if you're not physically fit or physically able, you shouldn't do the job.
Yeah.
However, with that said, that's not the reality of our, you know, quota systems of certain things that take place. But anyway, he's packing his pack, and they all have their packs. They all have a Pulaski, and which is a, you know, a saw, or not a saw, but it's basically an axe and a big heavy hoe combination. And he's packing the crew's water for the crew, this QB, which is about 35, 40 pounds, something like that, on top of his pack, or in addition to his pack. And then this girl can't keep up. So he grabs her chainsaw and he's packing it too.
Yeah.
For the crew. And he packs it in, and then he packs it out. And
that's what boggles my mind. Like, military wise, we have like water points. These guys are packing their water in. To me, it's crazy that you do that. And I'm like, gosh.
Well, what are they going to do? Because you can't, I mean, you know, that's what they got to have.
I get it. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so he's big, strong, burly, you know, looks like a freaking lumberjack. But then the smallest thing, you show him a puppy. Oh,
yeah. Puppy like, and a blade of grass.
And a blade of grass.
But all right, moving on to EPDs. So
anyway, so yeah, with his science degree, he covers that sort of stuff. Your mother is big on. She was very good at genetics in college. You know,
maybe that's where I got it, because I did do some science projects growing up with genetics and stuff like that. But
well, it's what you're exposed to, and if you get an understanding of something, and then it piques that interest, right? So
well, and the horses too, because with the horse business, we've been, you know, we're trying to go for color, conformation, because we're looking for who's got the smoothest, best walk that's also fast, because we're trying to cater to a clientele as well. But and I think, like, leading towards those EPDs, that's where I got into it, understood horses pretty well, starting to get more into the cattle part. And when we started first looking at EPDs for the bull sales, like, oh, this is cool, because we had a smaller herd. We're like, and we're looking at calving ease. That was a big one for us. Milk production. I mean, there's
birth weight's got to be a big one, right?
Birth weight. I mean, there's a lot of, I think there's close to like 50 EPDs that you can look at, but a lot of the times we'll focus on a half dozen.
Yeah, there's not, I don't think there's that many, but different breeds have different things they look at. Some of them are all similar, but all of those EPDs, you know, one breeder might cover or put this grouping of, you know, 12 or 15 EPDs. This is what they focus on. Another one may have half of those the same, but then other ones. So, and it's a mismatch, and it's only really relevant. There's some that are relevant to the breed, but some of these EPDs are only relevant to the herd from which they came. You know, it's what their peers are doing. So those numbers the EPDs are kind of cool. And
they're like anything though. They're like a statistic. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, because you're like, okay,
all they are.
You know, some
of
it,
a relative statistic.
They are, but at the same time, I think there's some interpretation that goes into it as well.
Right.
It's not wholehearted science. It's like, okay, this one looks to be producing a lot of this, so we're gonna basically, using a formula and kind of our intuition, place them at this number.
Right. And some of these numbers are based on the bull, right? The daughters that the bull has produced.
Yeah, lineage.
Goes into that animal. I mean, so it's not necessarily that. They try to go for predictability of a trait.
Well, and frankly, really, like, that's the best you can do with genetics anyway, because you're never gonna get it right. There's a reason why a genetic table has at least 4 traits, because
the Punnett square.
Yeah, that I can't ever remember that, but yeah, the Punnett square. Like, but really, there's a reason why it's at minimum has 4 boxes, because you have 4 outcomes. Are you gonna get that outcome every time? No. Now, if you have a recessive trait, you might get that recessive trait, and you can see where things will happen on more than likely 50 to 75% of the time. But again, it doesn't mean you're going to get it right. Because but you're also looking at one trait versus multiple traits and trying to put all those traits together. It's like, it's a 1 in a billion shot of actually calling it.
Well, and what's expressed and what's not. I mean, you may have the trait as a recessive, but it doesn't get expressed. You don't know it. But so yeah, it's the best we've got. But it's still not expressly genotyped, because you're not taking that animal's genetic code and able to look at it. You know, they don't take a blood sample, draw it, put it in there, and go, oh yeah, okay, here's the stayability, which means that a cow stays in the herd producing for at least 6 years. And how does that stayability, which is nothing more than you know, reliability of an animal to breed? That's how do you predict that? You can't necessarily predict that. So you do the best you can, and you measure that against others. Maintenance is another one. Is this animal, and they rate them the top percent of the herd, percentage wise. I mean, they're ranked. So if you're at I saw some of these that were this cow's in the top 94% of the herd. Okay, that means she's at the bottom 6.
Right.
Right. So
it's all in the wording. Yeah.
It's all. I mean, they're not trying to hide anything, but it's a ranking. So you have to look at some of these things. But it doesn't mean that cow for stayability is not going to last 10 years. Oh, and it also doesn't mean that its maintenance, it's going to take a lot more feed to keep that animal healthy than another one. It's a maintenance. So there's the milk score. You know, I want a animal that's going to be at least like a 22 on milk.
We always try to shoot for 25 on that.
25 to 30 is fantastic. But you know, so and that's where, so yeah, these are all, and they're a balance. You don't have everything that's perfect. When you got an animal that is really good and really high in all of those, then you're not going to be breeding them as a commercial breeder like us. You've got guys, because you're going to get outbid.
Yeah. And for sure. And it's happened.
Oh,
we look at a bull and we're like, oh yeah, we'll try for it. It goes up to like 12 grand. I'm like, nope, not trying that one.
Yeah. You remember that? You remember you and Braden were that sale with me and Dad.
Yeah.
And we
hold on a second.
We do the same thing.
Let me pause real quick.
Okay.
I've had a lot of coffee. All right, now it's going. What was your monologue?
You paused the recording?
Yeah, I paused the recording.
I had a great monologue going.
Well, I should know better. Okay, from here on forward, if I ever have to leave, I'll just say, hey, keep going a monologue because you're really good at talking. So
your mother's rubbed off on me.
Yeah, okay. But what was your monologue to nothing?
Oh, it was about just coffee use, and then I've had three of these great big ones this morning. Hey, you see that? Sorry.
Yeah, this is like the rest of my pot of coffee. I
have yet to break the seal because, you know, this is what manly men do. We gut it out and we don't get soft like you've obviously got with that big city living.
Yeah, big city living. All right. Really, all right. Moving on. So the EPDs though, like we were talking, you and I, we finished real quick before I paused. It was going to that sale. We looked at a couple of bulls. We'd even physically, and this is tying back to what essentially the prompt was.
We've got a process. Talk about the process.
So I guess I'll tell you from my angle, being in a couple with you, is we normally get a booklet beforehand of what should be there, either on the website or they'll send it to you or you'll ask for it, and then
it's a catalog.
Yeah, and it's essentially if you think of I guess. Hey, I'm going to go to Cabela's or I'm going to go to Bass Pro Shops or something. I'm going to Field and Stream. Yeah, there you go. It's hard to see, but yeah.
All right, and it's
thick.
God darn it.
You can't tell. We'll figure it out.
Okay, this synthetic background move.
Yeah, I know.
Has got to go. But it's a catalog that's
well, like how I like to explain is if you were to look at the old school Cabela's or Field and Stream magazines that would come out quarterly. Yeah. And you want to go through all the guns. You're like, oh, you know, I want to go on a gun buying bender, I guess. That would be the best way to describe it. You're like, I've got this amount of money, and I'm kind of looking at this type of gun. Here's what I'm going to do. And you start circling them and kind of going through the specs and stuff like that. Exact same thing using EPDs.
How I want this gun to perform.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we're doing with the bulls, or in this case, the cows. And that's why I asked, is this the process that you used for the cows too?
Yes, absolutely. Same process.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah. So that was my question, because it wasn't simply, what did you like? What was my original question? Like, is it like the bull sale? That's what it meant. Was it the did you use the same freaking process, or did you just walk in and be like, that one looks good, let's try it? Because
Right. No.
because now we've kind of got them selected from, let's say there's 100 bulls on sale for that day. That'd be a big sale, but 100 bulls, and we're like, okay,
There's sometimes 100, 150 bulls. It just depends on how big the barriers. But here, let's get an example.
yeah, that's hard to see. What we might do is, you know what, take a picture of that, and I'll add it into this. I'll just insert it into the clip. But yeah, it breaks down, you know, a table of, you know, these are the specifically identified EPDs, and here's their numbers. Now, some numbers you want low, some numbers you want high. Some of it there's also things like marbling, because if you're looking to try and get, you know, the fat and stuff on a finished steer or finished heifer, I guess, to go to slaughter, like you're wanting that for the flavor of the steak that you're trying to create. Now,
and that is done with an ultrasound.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, because you're measuring the fat thickness,
yeah,
or the fat density of that area in the ribeye area, right?
Yeah.
Well, and there's another one. REA is ribeye area. How big of an area on this animal produces ribeye steak?
So we've gone through the process of, we got this catalog. We've kind of cut it down to, I don't know, let's say we, out of 100 bulls or 100 cows, we've knocked it down to 15, 20 that we're interested in, right?
Well, yeah. Well, okay, if you're going to do a bull sale, you're looking normally at yearling bulls. These guys are yearlings, and they're going to go to
virgin bulls is what we call them. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're virgin bulls, but they've normally calved somewhere in January, February, and they're going to go to work in about June, which makes them about 18 months old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They've been fertility tested. There's all kinds of, there's also different EPDs with them. I mean, for one, that's you can't do with a cow is, believe it or not, scrotal circumference.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. Yep.
So, I mean, you can't measure that on a cow, but you do on the bull. So, and that actually is very weird. It has more to do with heifer fertility, or the ability for, and there's also another one, heifer production. How likely is a heifer to conceive on the first time she breeds? Or in this case, for them, it's AIing, or artificial insemination.
Right.
And so scrotal circumference also has to do with the fertility of these heifer out of a bull. Larger scrotum size, higher fertility in the females. It's like, who put that one together, right?
Yeah. See, I'm also.
You'd think more fertility out of the bull.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I'm curious, because I threw a number out there, a random number. It was 50 EPDs. And I want to, because there are a lot. How many EPDs are there for cattle?
There's a lot, but it's also breed specific as well sometimes. And they keep adding EPDs. There's a couple of new ones in the last few years called a Grid Master and Herd Builder. Well, those are scored against, I think, as a breed, not specific to the herd. They have to meet certain criteria, which that totally makes sense, right? If you're especially if you're looking for viability and to spread those genetics, you do that through the bull. I mean, you're going to have a bull breeding all these cows or more cows. You know, put the bull with 25 to we like to target 20 to 25. I oversaturate the cows with bulls. It's just because I want higher fertility.
But it's worked, because we tend to have very few dry cows. So
we had out of all those this year, what 2 dries?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so and so yeah, that saturation works. What's that bull cost you to maintain a year? You're looking, you know, probably in feed shots. All of the care. You're probably looking at the cost of 1 calf.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if he produces 1 extra calf, he's paid for himself.
Right.
You know, so or keeps a cow from being dry and having to go to town, then you lose a production out of a cow for that year. To me, it's worth it.
Yeah. Now, again, going back, I couldn't get a quick answer on how many EPDs there are. I know there's a lot, because depending, like you said, breed, what you're looking for and stuff like that at the sale, they pick and choose essentially. But to go back through the process, we've gone through the catalog, we've identified kind of what we're interested in. Right. And then once we get there, there's a time prior to the actual sale where you can walk through the pens, you can look at the animals and get essentially eyes on and see, okay, how does this animal look compared to the picture? Because just like anything else, you're going to try and make your animal look better by getting the best picture you can, maybe combing them and stuff like that to make them look good. And then
Right.
of course with these days you've got Photoshop and whatnot to, you can kind of edit some things and make things look a little better if you want. But
Yeah, you could on these catalogs, and you're always gonna. I don't care who you are. You're gonna always give your best picture,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, some of these places you go, when you're looking at them and doing that preview, and the preview can take place several days before. I mean, these breeders are really open. They want people to show up to buy their cattle, right?
Yeah.
And these are registered breeders. We're commercial, which means we're not breeding animals to sell to other people so that they can breed for food, into the food chain. We're commercial, which we raise cattle, sell them so that they go into the food chain. These guys are selling so that they can sell us quality animals so that we pass on. So some of these breeders are, well, for instance, they had a bull. They found some semen straws with at the sale. Didn't realize they had them. They were like, in a nitrogen tank. Thought that there were no more left on the planet from this really, really good bull, and so they sold these. I think there were 20 straws, and they went for, I think it wasn't bad. It was like $85 a straw.
Oh yeah, that's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all, but so you're passing these genetics through, and most of these guys are doing AI because they want to know when that consent, or when they were bred, and conceived, and they're marking them. They're trying to get them. Some of them are synchronizing them with basically like a hormone synchronization to try to get them to create the follicles on the ovaries, so they ovulate at the time they want them to have all of these cows or batches of them. When they see that they think they're getting close to having a estrus cycle, they give them a shot, synchronize them, which, I mean, we just don't do that. We breed naturally out in pasture. So it's a totally different operation. But
Yep.
With that said, we're still looking for some of these traits. I'm looking for different things. The bulls are just, you're going to get what you're going to get with a year old or 18-month-old bull. And you know that. That's okay. It's a heifer bull. You put these, it's a light bull. You put those with your heifers. But you're still looking for those traits so that you get a low birth weight calf, probably out of this bull matched to a cow. And I don't worry quite so much about it because we're breeding 2-year-old heifers instead of yearling heifers, so we get an extra year. They're calving as 3s. So with that, you're trying to mix and match those correctly. You're not wanting a 95-pound calf probability out of this bull. If you see that, you go, you know what, nope, we're passing on him. We're not going to buy him. I'm not even going to consider it. But if you've got one that's a 75-pound, 78-pound calf out of a bull that's got some good genetics, and you like, again, this preview is for the phenotype. How does this animal physically look?
Right.
Are they long backed, more backs? Guess what? You get more steaks out of there, right?
Yep.
I want their hind end to have a nice flare to it. I don't want them thin and skinny. We want their back and bottom line to be fairly blocky and long, and we want good feet on them. We want big bone and good feet, good in joints. I want to look. I don't need something wild, but nice flat back. Because we've had, I've had some heifers that were like, and coincidentally, I think a heifer that doesn't want to stay home, she is jumping the fence, getting out of it. She tends not to conceive. She tends not to have a calf in her, and if she does, I don't want her anyway. If she's gonna, do that.
Is that just a kind of a random observation you've had with the cows? Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if other people have that.
I asked Dad about that, and he goes, "Yeah, I think there's something to that." He says, "I kind of agree that they're a little wilder than they're almost like a steer. I would rather run yearling heifers than yearling steers, because yearling steers are like into and trying to get out of everything, and they're hard to hold home. They're just they wander. They're high energy." And
see, and that's an interesting observation because, again, going back to the genetic part, with poor man's genetics here, just kind of spitballing, like it makes you wonder, is there maybe a little more testosterone in that cow's system, and that's what's doing it. They're acting
Right.
more like a steer, and they
Yep.
like possibly harder to conceive because of the testosterone. Like all that stuff, you start thinking about it, like, it's a possibility, because some men have more estrogen in their system, and it does things to them. Some women have more testosterone in their system, and it does things to them. So
Right. Well, and you do get steers. They'll have an extra X chromosome, and they use those for AI and breed detection and collecting semen. But so yeah, I mean, you've got genetic anomalies, but you also have just hormonal influence as well. So I don't know. This is just purely observation on my part, and just a wild guess. Now I've had some of these that seem to be a little wilder. They'll conceive just fine, have calf, and then the next thing you know, you forget what number this cow was, because she's had a calf, she's settled down a little bit, and she's in your herd, and she's doing fine. But so the bulls, you kind of get what you get on age wise, because that's the class that they're selling. But with the cows, they've got everything. There was an 9-year-old. She was 2011 model. She was 9 years old. Cow, 9.5 now, nearly 10. And she went for, I think she was $11,000, $10,000 or $11,000. But her EPDs, her genetics were really well. They've been in her herd or their herd for a long time, right? So they're doing stuff. So what they'll probably do is then try to do some embryo flushes on her, which is a whole different thing, where they'll get her pregnant, then take the embryos, pull them out, the embryos out, freeze them, and then they'll implant them into less valuable cows to produce that line. And she could pay for herself like that in a couple of years if she holds it. But that is an extraordinary amount of money for that old of a cow.
Yeah.
So when you're again, now we're going back to, I'm looking at my age of the cow. What do I want to buy? I don't want to buy yearling heifers. And I bought one because her EPDs were so attractive that Braden and I both were like, oh man, she is nice. So we each have a catalog that you talked about, and we look at it, and then we score what we think on a 1, 2, and 3, or 3+. You can go 2.5, 2.75, whatever. You score. You look at it independently. You score that animal.
I was gonna say, that's the big thing. We don't talk. We might talk about, what do you think about this cow, and we're kind of talking like the physicalities of them and stuff like that. But we always score our own things. And like, if we look over, we always kind of do this. Like, no, don't look. We'll get there. Give it an hour.
Yeah. No, well, but we also we do eliminate some of those animals based on the EPDs. If you got something that's got really horrible EPDs, I will still maybe look at it, but I'm not really super interested. I'll give it a glance.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going by them, but to me the phenotype is so much more important too. So we score them, and then we agree that this one's out. This is why I like this one. This is why I don't like this one. This is what I remember, and taking some notes like that. So yeah, we bought a yearling heifer that is going to calve it's mid-April, which is okay. It's not earlier in our calving season. That's a month in, but God, she's nice. Really a nice heifer. And I got her for a decent price. Braden and I both had 3+ on her as a score. Yeah. So,
and that's why we do it, because there's been times where, I look at something like, okay, I think that's good. And then you're like, no, I like it. I'm like, why? And then we have a discussion, because then, you might make me think, okay, yeah, you're right. Or there's been times where I'm like, no, I'm not budging on this. I don't like that cow. And you're like, okay.
Well, and that happens. You're always, the feet are so important on any animal. It doesn't matter. And there was one that she was walking, and I looked at it, and it's cold. It's, the corrals are frozen, and so there's not a lot of even ground. And I saw her take a couple steps, and I'm looking, and I'm going, okay, it's just, she's stepping on this frozen ground. And Braden goes, yeah, he says, she's limping on her, on that near side. And I'm like, and I watched, so I just took another look at her, and like, it was subtle, but it was there, and he was dead on right. And I'm like, oh man, I'm glad you saw that. She's out.
Yep.
Because
you don't know if that's if that's a recent injury, or if that's a genetic issue, or if it's an ongoing issue that you just don't know.
Care. I don't want to buy a problem.
Right. Exactly.
right? Even if it is short term, I don't want to buy a problem because I don't know that it couldn't be. And then there was another one that I saw, and she was really, really nice cow. I really liked her, but I looked and I'm looking at her feet and I went, ooh, that one hock is swollen a little bit and it's turned. It's turned out a little bit more. And I went, oh, either that's a recent break or she had a break early as a calf and it doesn't bother her. But still, again, I don't want to buy something that is, you know, a problem. And it didn't hurt. You can tell it didn't hurt, but she was just off on it, the way she put her foot down. And I said, this cow's lame here or got a bad foot is what I said. And he's like, really? And he looked and I said, yeah, look at it swollen a little bit. And it does, she's even a little more cow hock. And what we mean by cow hock is straight legs like this. This is, you know, cow hock where their heels are touching or pointed towards each other. And I said, that one is like, it was like this. And he's like, and he's watching, he goes, oh, she is. Yeah. And it looks like it's a little larger, a little bit on the hock too. So I don't know that it's real now or if that's just left over from some scar tissue. Doesn't matter. She's out. And she was a nice cow. I would have bought her if we could, but so
that's why you look.
Yeah, that's why you look, and you look at stuff and you go, you know, there's not a lot of these cows that were really bad phenotype to get rid of. You know, you could have bought these sight unseen and still done okay, I think.
Right.
For the most part, except for something like that, you know, and the video now, what they do is instead of running these animals in live into a small arena inside of the building where everybody's sitting on benches, everybody had those and they move them around in there so you can take a look at them again and then kick them out the door. And then it's just a revolving door basically with a small pen.
Kind of like what we showed a couple of weeks ago with when the calves went to the auction yard. You know, they brought them in, everybody looked at them and they sold. Instead, you're saying they're all up on a monitor, like a big screen or a couple big screens looking out, almost like a sports bar in a weird way. And you're just looking at it and the auctioneer's doing his thing.
Yep, auctioneers behind it, up on where they normally sit, and that pen is a lot smaller because it's only for one cow, or you might be able to get two cows or a couple of bulls in there, but normally it's singles.
Yeah.
And so those monitors are now up there against that auctioneer and the clerk. They're back there where they're normally at, and then you're just looking at these things. But the problem with that is you're not looking at something at real time right now. You're looking at when they filmed them, maybe a week or 10 days ago. And somebody's worked hard to put all that together. But you look at that cow, and I told Braden, I said, there's the cow with the bad foot. And he goes, no, it isn't. She's not limp. And I go, she is today. You know, so, and they had, I think like 30 head of heifers that they were just selling as a herd. And you could take them in lots of 5 if you wanted, or you could take the whole thing, whoever bid the highest. And then they would, you know, if you took them all, then they're gone, right? And those 30 head of heifers were bred heifers, yearlings. I think they went for, they were commercial. They were not registered. I think they went for $1,750 a piece. So you take 1,750 times 30 is what, like 54,000, something like that.
Sure.
I think. So yeah. So now you've got an instant herd, but it's going to take you a couple of years to pay for them because you've got that much into them now, depending on the prices. And they're commercial. They're not registered. So,
so we just went through the process and like how we came to essentially the conclusion of how you guys and how we buy. But what happened this week? Like how made you get? Did you think you did well?
Well, here's the funny thing is I look at the cows because we bought the sale a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago. Anyway, we bought, I think 9 head there then, and took them home. And I've looked at them, and they've had some cows. We had a couple dry. You know, I mean, they've been okay cows. But when I look at them compared to ours, I look at them and go, you know, they're not as fleshy. They don't hold flesh quite as well. And I think we can do better buying our own cows or building our own cows, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. Your grandmother says, I want to buy 2 cows or buy some cows. I said, okay. How many you want? Because she lost a few, and she goes, well, I'm staying in the business. I want to be able to buy and sell and have some income or loss.
Yeah. This year.
Right? This year. And so she said, and I'm thinking, oh God, she's going to want like 10 head, right? I'm thinking, where am I going to have the grass for them? We bought hay. We don't have the hay for them.
I was
And
gonna
she
say,
goes,
going back to the beginning, taking care of the
right,
ground. You don't want to get too
right,
many, overextend it, break down what
right.
you've got. Yeah.
And she goes, well, I want 2. And I went, oh, okay. 2's going to be doable. We can
Yeah, that's
absorb
good.
that easy. That's not a problem. I said, all right. Well, then they got all this COVID stuff. She's 77 years old. She has on oxygen. And I'm like, I
She's
mean,
what you might call high risk.
yeah, a little COPD,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'm like, God dang it. I don't even give her a hug, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
around and I try to keep my distance from her and Bob, because he's a few months younger than she is. And he's got longevity. He'll probably live to be 180 years old. I mean, his whole family lives up into their late 90s, 100. So he got that going for him, you know,
Yeah.
but still, you know, you're vulnerable. And so I told her, I said, yeah, I don't know how many and how much you want to go to this sale. I know they'll want to go because they might see somebody they know, right? That's a social hour for them.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll go and I can get you a cow or a couple of cows and do the best job we can bidding on them, because she's not going to bid on them anyway. She's going to have me do that. And I said, honestly, Mom, I walk into Shipton's or I walk into Tractor Supply or I walk into an ag place, and you know what? People aren't wearing masks. That's just, we don't like being told what we have to do. Yep. And I said, I'm with it. You know what? I try to be respectful of people, and I just stay the heck away from them. I go out and around them and leave them alone. But, you know, don't tell me I need to do this, especially with the hypocrisy. We can go into that. That's a whole other 8-hour one. Anyway, so I said, chances are going to be very good that nobody's wearing a mask there. And if you have a lot of people from a lot of places, that really is more of a high-risk group. If you're going to spread any disease, it doesn't matter how virulent it is as far as what it does to you. It can be spread. That's the facts. And she goes, okay. So they stayed away. But then she went online and watched it.
Oh, cool. Kind of okay.
Yeah, which was kind of cool about that. But called it, saw one mask. And she only put that on after this older woman after she ate. But she's standing right beside me. She came on and started eating right beside me. And, you know, there were no tables to eat at. You just kind of found a place and clamshell. I mean, they've changed things a lot that way. So all these vulnerabilities that could be there. And a lot of older people, you know, the ag people are not, it's not really young. There's
as you say, there's a growing trend where there's not a lot of people my age in that bracket.
Yeah, the demographics is like a stem of a mushroom and then the mushroom for the older people, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, really. So anyway, she stayed, bought 2 cows, or bought 1 cow. And this cow I really hadn't looked at, but as she come in, man, they were not bidding on her. And you got the picture over there looking at the EPDs. And I was like, she got down like 1,300. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Try it.
Take a chance on her and bid on her. And I got her for $1,600.
Okay.
Which is okay. And then I'm like, man, I'm hoping I'm not making a mistake here, because the video looks good, the picture looks good, but you know what? I've already seen a couple of cows out there that didn't have.
Well, and then now you're questioning it too, because you're like, nobody else bid. Like, what am I not seeing that maybe they're seeing? Because then there's the opposite problem where we've also been like, okay, we're interested in this bull, and it starts like people immediately just skyrocket. We're like, I'm out. Like, clearly they saw something that we saw too. So,
well, yeah, like I think that one you're talking about, that was like my prime pick of all of these bulls at that sale. This has been how many years ago?
I think it was all 4 of us. And this is what happened before the coffee break. All 4 of us, you, me, Braden, Grandpa, we were all like, yep, that's the one. We all gave it the nod. We're like, let's get it. And it started at like, it started, I think, reasonable at like 2,500. We're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it just,
well,
I think
they always start high. They start, I mean, they all start like, you know, $5,000 or $8,000, and nobody bids. So they work it down. Yep. You know, they're looking for somebody who's going to swat a fly, and they go, sold, you know, at 10,000. So, you know, they brought it down. It went ridiculously low quick. And I was like, yeah. So I bid. Or no, maybe I didn't even have a chance to bid, because I got down there and just like 5 or 6 people jumped in.
Yep, and that's what happened. I think that's what I remember. It was about half dozen. And you're like, okay, I'll do it, and then it just took off.
But you bid, and there's for somebody who is competitive, I have a tough time at these things because I want to win. right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just in there, and you're like, okay. And I've gotten better about it. It's like, no, I've got a limit, and there'll be other cows. We're making more every day.
Yeah.
And so, but when you do that, that auctioneer, you know, the first time you get their attention, and then they're bid, and you're looking, and then after that, all you got to do is just go, and you just bid, or just nod your head and you bid.
Because it starts off, they got to see who's interested. That's the thing.
They got to see,
because they're not going to just, they're not going to, it's not in the movies where they're just going to be like, oh yeah, it's you. Like, no. You got to get their attention because they want to know who's interested. Then once they know, they have spotters looking.
Right.
And they're paying attention. And then I've seen you get close and you're like, that's all you do. And they're like, nope, he's done. And they'll start looking for others.
Right. And that happened on this one that I bid. I think we paid $2,500 for her. Yeah, we did $2,500 for that really nice. I quit at like 220. I don't know, 2,200. I don't remember. It had to have been less than that. And I went, because it was going fast. I went, now, and then it stalled at 2,500 or 2,250. And I was like, ooh, that's a nice enough cow. It's another $250. And so because I told him no earlier when it hit, you know, like 2,000, the numbers aren't adding up. Anyway, I said no. And then I went, you know what? It stalled. I had to get his attention again because you're right. He left me because I told him no.
Right.
And he come back, and then I'm like, and he was a yep. And then nobody bid, and I got her. But it was like, yeah, you got to be careful at these things. You know what you're gonna intend to buy and what you don't. But they go very, very fast. You have to pay attention, and you've got to be able to hear that auctioneer because when it starts out at 25 and goes to 13, like it did that bull, and your dad or your grandpa looks at me and goes, well, well, you know, I guess we can pick them like anybody, but we sure as hell can't afford them like they can. you know how he was.
Oh yeah,
it was just pretty funny.
But it was accurate because we just didn't have the money for it. And we're like, no. I mean,
I'm not paying $13,000 for a commercial bull.
No, and that's what it was. I think he probably ended up going down the registered path, but
there's no doubt. Yeah, they collected semen on him because he's a very good bull.
Yeah.
But
if I remember right, it was like
12.5 or something. It was almost $13,000.
I'm not doing that. I thought it was closer to 20.
That particular one I'm remembering, no, but I mean this has happened a number of times.
Yeah.
This isn't the only time this ever happened.
Yeah. So.
But so yeah, you try to do the best job of buying you can. You're looking at your EPDs. You're looking at birth weights. I mean, all of these things, and they're going fast. You've got about 45 seconds to look at the ones ahead. And Braden was doing recon on the EPDs ahead of me on stuff that on the yearling heifers or some of the coming 3-year-old heifers. We didn't look at them all. Right. And because we looked at them out there, it was like, you know what? These are pretty even cows. I mean, and I made the comment, I says, I think you could buy any one of these and be okay. And he goes, yeah, I agree. They're pretty even, pretty nice looking, really what we're looking for. And so when that one, I bought one for your grandma, and then a cow, a coming 3-year-old heifer, and these are all bred. They're preg tested, pregnant, and so you know you're getting a bred cow. You're going to have one in the spring, and one come through, and I bought it for us. And went, I'm not going to spend that kind of money, you know, for grandma. We're trying to get these as cheap as I can for, and still get a good cow. And then another one come through and went, crap. Yeah, okay, we bought that. And I wasn't going to buy any for us at all. But your mother got a substitute for the day for her class. So she went with us. And she's like, she keeps looking at me, and I'm like, what? She goes, that was a really good one. That was a good cow. And I said, yeah, I know, it was a good one. She goes,
and let me kind of do a quick stop there because there's been times where, like you're saying, Braden's kind of doing recon because what is this for us? Let's put it in sports terminology. This is draft day.
This is drafting. Right? Yep.
So
yep.
I mean, we're looking through the numbers and there's been times, like specifically with bulls, when we went to Hysham, we went through them and we looked through everything and we numbered them and like, okay, this looks good. You've got, I think that was kind of a smaller sale if I remember right. There's like 75 bulls, and I went through. I don't remember if you did this, but I went through and I'm like, I liked this one. This is my number one pick. This is my number two, and number one might be at the end. and number 2
Right.
might be in the middle, and number 50 might be up on top. Like it's just
Yeah.
all over. And
That's exactly right.
and there was one where we ended up taking him, and I think we had like 13 numbered, and I think he was like number 9 or number 10. That's the one we bought. The one I had numbered at number 3, because 1 and 2 were right off the bat, and they were up there, they were gone, and
Yeah.
number 3 was towards the end, and you took the one that was higher ranking, as in like really lower ranking. You would draft him later on, but he was one of the
Right.
first ones out, and you took him, and I'm like, I don't know. I questioned it, and then what happened? Here's the problem.
The very next bull.
Yeah, the very next bull, it was the better one, and he sold for about
Less.
three quarters what we just bought the other one. And you started kicking your pants, and I was a little pissed, but at the same time, it's like, you don't know, because what would have happened if you would have passed up on that first one? Now you pay double for the next. It's a weird thing that you just got to be like, I got to take the chance, I got to take the risk, and that's where you're going with Mom. Is she sees the opportunity, she's like, listen, we can do it, we can squeeze it, let's try it. And so she's egging you on a little bit, but it's for a good reason, because you just don't know, and you're doing the best you can at the moment.
Well, and I'm thinking, money's tight right now because we took a loss, and I'm like, oh, now you're dipping into a reserve that you've got that, covers these. And she's looking, and I said, look, these are not dogs. You can't take them all home.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that to her. She's like, well.
Oh, she froze up. This is the worst time to feed.
No, they're not puppies. You can't take them all home. And she would take them all. She could,
Yeah. Yeah. They're all Mom's babies.
So we ended up buying 2. They are, yes. So we bought 2 for your grandma, and then we ended up buying 2.
Okay.
And so they're nice. They're really good looking animals, and they're bred. So, it's going to take 2 years for them to pay for themselves if you get a decent price on your calves.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
So the third calf will pay for them, plus give a little bit of towards their maintenance, their upkeep, their shots. So that 4th calf we get out of them, should be more towards the profit line, which is just crazy. And I said, look, we can build our own in the same amount of timeline. And she goes, yeah, but you got a calf right now. And I said, yes, but it's going to take this many years to pay it off. And when you look at it, it's pretty close to a wash in time.
It's just looking at that long game. It's hard to do.
It's looking at the long game. Yeah, it's very difficult to do. And you've got some aging cows that we're going to have to cull next year. I know that this is their last year. So you're anticipating, at least we've got one in production now instead of 2 years from now. Yeah. So, and that's where her logic was. And she's not wrong. It's about filling that immediate void that's going to happen in the short term, and still playing the long game, and it's hard to let go of these cows. I mean, it just is hard to let go of them, and they're not going to last forever, and they're not going to produce and maintain a good, healthy body themselves. I mean, there comes a time it's like, yeah, they're done.
Right.
So it's hard to do that. You have to be more logical than emotional. You cannot be emotional. And then I allow ears to stick around. Yeah, she'll have one more calf, and then she's done. She's just going to live here.
Yeah. Well, I guess time will tell, and on some of those cows and stuff like that. But I'm glad you got a couple. That's good.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It's it makes for a long day because you leave, and that was
you leave early, leave late.
Yeah, you're 170 miles away. About 170 miles away. So, you're going there and back, and we got home, and I think we made it home by about 8:45 that night, which wasn't bad, really. I mean, that was kind of record time. Last time we did this, it was 11 o'clock at night before we got home.
Yeah.
And leaving at 7 a.m, which it's not, the hours aren't bad. It just makes for a long day.
Well, no, it was funny too, because Mom sent that video. We can't show it because it's really hard to see because it's super dark, but you had him in the trailer and you let him out, and you go, what's the count? Because you're always counting. And Mom goes, I counted 4, so everybody's there. And of course, then there's Braden with his smart ass comments. I count 3.5.
Yeah.
Hey, Braden.
Yeah. Well, what I was really worried about is that we didn't have one down on the ground.
Yeah.
Because that kind of little addition is we're coming home, we're coming through some country that's got a lot of deer in it, and my eyes are peeled, and I'm driving 65, 62, 65 through this stuff. And I had them load these cows all in the front compartment, the front half of the trailer. I wanted them in there nice and tight, and so that we didn't have a lot of ability for them to move around and throw that trailer around as you're going down. We had good roads, so there wasn't about an ice or anything. It just pack them up tight. And I glad I did, because all of a sudden here comes a big buck whitetail, and he just walks across the road, and we all saw it at the same time. They hollered deer, and man, I hit those brakes as much as I dared, and he just keeps coming. Didn't bother him a bit. And so I'm like, I was gonna try to go to the right of him because he was coming from the left, and I'm like, oh. So then I turned, and you could feel that whole, that uneasy. And I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna get around him. I'll maybe clip the side of him, and I just barely got by him. But that deer never slowed down. And so now I'm thinking, okay, and I'm feeling the back there, because you can feel them moving around.
Yeah. And
it felt pretty good. And I'm like, oh God, I hope one of them didn't, I knock her down or something. And they were fine. So it was good.
Good to hear.
But
well, hopefully next week we will be doing this all from Montana in one location.
Yes.
So
I don't know how that's gonna look, but we'll make it work.
We'll try and do like a Facebook Live / YouTube Live thing and see how that goes. That'll be like our inauguration to live broadcasting. But
maybe we should have your brother and mother join in at one of these times here.
Well, we need to make sure Braden wakes up early, gets plenty of coffee, and he's ready to talk, because otherwise, give him his pack of cigarettes and his cup of coffee.
Yeah, well, his pack of cigarettes, I don't know if he's smoking much, but the other alternative is that we keep him drunk from the night before, and I'm not really interested in doing that.
I could be. I think we could swing it. We'll just take turns throughout the night, just like
he's
feeding a baby. Like, here you go,
like
give
your
him.
Mother.
That's true. Yeah, she did serve in the USS Potty Mouth, so.
The USS Potty Mouth in the Navy. She was there for a career. That's right.
All right, it's all on you.
All right. Well, I guess thank you till you're better paid.